Hello, everyone. How you guys doing? Hey, Steven. Good morning.
What is up?
How you doing?
I'm here, man. I am here.
You're in the mood today, huh?
Huh. Yeah. Let me turn this down. What is up, man? It has been a week, hasn't it?
Well, it's been a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm glad to be here. How are you?
Doing good. Pretty excited. I had quite a few things happen over these couple of weeks that were kind of like first times for me, so that was pretty
Yeah.
exciting. We're echoing.
Nah, that was me.
Oh,
You're good now. Let me kill this.
let's see. We got some people in here. We got
Who we got?
Raphael Joshua, Corey Dorable.
Triple D. Aquatic.
Oh yeah, still echo.
Is it still an echo now?
I guess so. Am I the one that's echoing then? Yeah, it looks like it.
Okay.
Let me. All right. Shut this down. Am I still echoing?
Sound good to me on my end, brother.
Hey Jesse, am I still echoing? Oh
He's
yes.
saying, yeah, it's you.
All right. So how do I deal with this? Turn down my volume.
I can read your lips, but I can't hear you. Go into settings, and then click on audio, and then click on the microphone and choose which input you want. 'Cause I'm thinking it's trying to discern between your headphones and the microphone on your device.
How about now? Is it better?
Yep, I can hear you now.
Okay. Is
All
it still
right.
echoing now?
For me, no.
How about the other ones?
Cichlid Aquarius, what's going on? Welcome to the show. We got a good one for y'all today. As soon as we get this audio debacle. Man, feels good to smile, bro. Hey, I thought I was a goner, bro. I was sick as a dog this whole week, man. Whew. I thought I was a goner. It's all good though.
They're saying mine is still echoing. Okay. I got everything closed. Let me see. Well, maybe not.
Oh, you
Yeah.
know what? It could be. Let me log out on my device. Keep talking,
Okay.
and see if that's what it is.
I don't know. Let's see. Is
Go
that
ahead.
Yeah, I'm still. Come on.
Is it still the echo?
I don't
Because I
know.
logged out.
Echo cancellation. How about now? Is that any better?
Sounds good to me.
Yes, it's still echoing, or yes, it's better.
I think it says yes. The corridor is saying yes.
Still
Echo is
echoing.
louder.
Louder. Okay. How come I didn't have this issue last time?
I don't know. What'd you do differently?
Took a shower. Now. Did that eliminate the
I can hear you now. There's no echo for me. I'm thinking it might be your earbuds.
Yeah, let me get rid of them. Let me put it back to the setting that I had.
I think that's what it is.
Yeah, I think this camera that I installed now actually does have a microphone. So default.
Are you serious?
Okay, did that solve it?
Yeah, bro. Like you're loud. It sounds good. I don't
Hold
know if
on,
it's
I
echoing
can't hear
though. For
anything
me,
because I
no.
have to pause it down. How about now? Is that better or not? No, it's still hearing the echo. What in the world?
Yeah,
This is crazy.
maybe you need to mute your earbuds. You're getting hit with the Saharan dust. I don't know. And that's cool, Kazzy, because like I watch the weather too. I watch a couple of vigilante meteorologists, and there is a lot of dust um,
Okay, how about now?
in the Atlantic. I don't. You're fine on my end.
So let's try muting your camera. Okay. Let me-
I hope it's not. I don't know what it was. All I know is it was a bug, and um, I was really, really sick. Needless to say. Yeah, we do. And it's already hot too, so I ain't gonna jinx nothing. I just want to see, we'll see how active the Atlantic is gonna be this year. Within it's already on, so I do thank you, Raphael and
Is
Kazi
that any
both.
better? No, sorry.
Instead, are you watching yourself on an extra device?
No, I got all my devices up.
Yeah, no, you sound fine to me.
No, I don't know. It's shit.
Y'all leave a thing leave a comment to see if so we know if the sound quality is better on Jorge Zin.
See, testing 1, 2, 3. Hey, at least now I know how John Hudson felt. Is that worse?
I'm not sure. I hear like a fuzzy sound,
A fuzzy
but
sound? That's probably the
yeah.
fan. Okay. These are the things that I hate. It's louder, but still echo. Oh, man.
Well, that's weird.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
I can hear you.
I know I can hear you, but I'm still hearing a different sound, like it was picking me up somewhere else.
Man, now you have no audio.
How about now?
Yeah.
Oh, hold on.
That time I heard the echo. Yeah, you got something feeding back on something that's interfering with something. Says I have an echo too.
See how bad is that?
Yeah, it's terrible.
trying to figure this out. Let's see. Is that any better? I can't hear anything. No sound. Okay. Did the sound come back? Is it good? I can't hear anything though. I am completely deaf over here. Let me see. Not good.
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right.
All right. Can you
Everybody's
hear me?
good.
How about me?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
All
I'm
right.
just not
No
going to use
problem.
the headphones.
That's what it was
Well,
then.
I really need to apologize for that. We've been working on this all week trying to avoid these type of technical issues, but I guess you never know until you go live what's going to pop off.
Always messing with stuff. I ain't gonna say nothing, man. Always messing with stuff. This is like one of them Al Bundy, Tim the Tool Man Taylor moments. It's like, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and get me a little bit
Well,
of more of this technology.
yeah, that's what I did. I incorporated more
Yeah.
technology into this, but I really couldn't test it out. I added a new camera. I'm not using my computer default camera
Oh,
because I
yeah.
noticed in the last video it was kind of grainy. But
Yeah. It
I
looks
guess
good though.
this camera has its own microphone. I wasn't aware of that, so that was kind of playing back and forth, picking up both audios. But
It's
it
like
looks
one
like
of
we
them,
got that worked out.
it's like one of them, you gonna learn today. You gonna learn today.
All right. Well, that's definitely not the start we wanted to have.
Oh well, it happens. We got a good crew though. Thank you guys for rocking with us while we exercise that uh, humility and all that good stuff. So we do have a good show. We will compensate you guys for that with a damn good show. So without further ado,
One
let's
second.
get into it.
Let me real quick. Solamente darle las gracias a los que estén aquí que hablan español. Acuérdense, si tienen alguna pregunta, siéntanse con la confianza de preguntarnos, ya sea en español o en inglés, cualquiera de las dos, nosotros les vamos a responder a la pregunta. Y eso es para los que están aquí que únicamente hablan español o se sienten más cómodos hablando español. So, go ahead, Steve.
Darian, thank you for that too. Yeah, just leave it in there. We'll enter it. So where do you even want to start? The topic for today is we are taking it back to the old school. So, beginners. And we want to start with a question. But before we pose this question, I want to make a promise. So, by the time we leave this stream today, we will have identified why we got into keeping fish, how we usually go about getting into keeping fish. We will have touched on the basics of husbandry and care. And I would like to have everyone leave with a better sense of understanding because everybody can learn from everybody. And there's no such thing as I already know it all. So, with
That's so
that,
true.
let's roll with it and let's pose the question, Jorge.
All right.
Si es disponible. Boom. There it is. How we usually get started in the hobby. All right. So here's the question. in the comments right now, what was the first fish you bought, right? And was it an impulsive, holy crap, that's amazing, I gotta have it type of thing? Or was it methodical, right? You did the research. You like looked at every encyclopedia and book and database that you possibly could and just, I don't know, just over inundated yourself with information, and then you went and got the fish. And were you overwhelmed or were you underwhelmed? So let us know. Let us know what was the first fish y'all got.
Yeah. Well, let's while they start posting that, let's get
You
into
go, yeah.
you and I as to well, for me, the reality was I got into this impulsively, and like I was alluding to last time on the previous stream, really it was legitimately for maybe all the wrong reasons why I got into it. But the very first fish that I got were some convict cichlids, and
Mm-hmm.
that was a very impulsive purchase because I was not prepared at all to keep them. Luckily, I went with convicts because those guys are bulletproof. I mean, everything that I put them through, and they still managed to make it through, and eventually breed for me. Really goes to show how sturdy and resilient convicts can be, and that's probably why they thrive wherever it is that they find themselves because of that resiliency.
Mm-hmm.
What was yours?
Um, my first fish was Gambusia affinis. It was a mosquito fish, and me and my little brother caught her. And them was like the suicidal ones, low key, because we didn't know what the hell we was doing. I don't even think we had a net. I think we like made a like trap with a coffee can or a milk jug or something, and we managed to wrangle a handful of them. And I had them in a little fish bowl, one of the old school joints. It's just like a death trap for fish, essentially. It was the one with the. It wasn't a skinny tall one. It was the low joint. You know, like this, and it was so awesome. I remember those fish. But yeah, those were my first. Those were my first ones.
Yeah. Well, let's see what we got here in the chat. It looks like Corey Dorable. I guess her first fish were minnows that she would collect um, down in the drainage ditches where she was living at as a child.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, Majestic. He says he was 10 years old, and his first gift, it was as a gift, and it was an Oscar.
An Oscar.
And he said that was a very impulsive purchase from his dad. I think his dad is the one that really wanted the Oscar, and Majestic was probably just the excuse for the
Right.
purchase. I don't know, Eric. Let us know. Kazzy says she had it was a goldfish that she rescued, that her husband rescued from a leaking outdoor pond. That was their their first fish, or her first fish. Um, and she had them in a bowl as a kid. Yeah, I think we've all at one point or another have had fish bowls as being our very first aquarium. For me, it was one of those metal frame 10-gallon tanks. That's what I remember. What I can remember right now that I just can't recall whether I got the fish first or the tank first. That's the one thing
Mm-hmm.
that I can't recall what it was, but I do remember the tank very vividly because it used to used to shock me every time I would have to do a water change because it had that metal frame,
Right.
and I guess I would ground myself and lean up against it, and I would get zapped. And I remember hating having to do water changes because of that reason.
Did you ever get to run a slate bottom? Did
No,
anybody
those
anybody ever get to run a slate bottom back in the day? I did.
yeah, I've seen them. and I used to hear those were real heavy, but I never that. I guess that was the the second version of that because mine had a glass bottom.
Yeah. And then too, P game, I had a standard size 20-gallon. And it was like when Walmart used to keep fish back in the day, like in the late 80s, early 90s. So between like 89 and 90, maybe 93. It was a 20-gallon and it had pea gravel as a background, bruh. Like they slabbed epoxy all over the back of the tank, like the silicone. And it looked like they just literally poured a bag of gravel on the back of it and smushed it around with a brush or something, and then let it dry, and boom, that was the background. And you were talking about heavy, that was heavy, but that was like the awesomest tank ever. And I wish I would have got. I think it leaked on me or something. It was old. I ran it though. I got my money out of it.
And it's funny because even as though that back then I was getting into fish pretty impulsively,
Yeah.
you would think that with time, uh, I would have learned and become a little bit more methodical when it comes to buying fish. But I think that impulsiveness in us and as a
Mm-hmm.
hobbyist is hard to get rid of. And the reason I say that is just because this last weekend I ended up impulsively buying some fish that I just thought it was just that cool factor for me that I couldn't resist. And everything was telling me, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, because I knew absolutely nothing about these fish. And with all that knowledge behind it, I still went ahead and did it thinking, all right, I'm going to keep these guys alive because I know how to keep fish.
You just
So,
dived in.
so now I'm in that situation where I can't fail. I pulled the
Right.
trigger on these guys, and now I'm committed. I have to do everything in my power to make sure they don't pass on me. And what I
That's
ended up getting were some Australian desert gobies.
uh-huh.
I know that might not sound too exciting for some people, but this is the first gobies that I've ever kept.
Here, I'm gonna pull them up right now while you're doing that. I'm gonna pull them up, and then that'll be a good way to segue into the next slide. But let me pull these gobies up
Yeah.
for the
And and,
people.
and those I would say are an impulsive purchase just very recently. Also, along with that, but these were gifted to me, and I ended up picking up some live bears, which I'm a little bit more familiar with live bears in general. So that wasn't that I don't know if I would consider that impulsive, because I knew ahead of time that I had the tanks to fit them in, and because I know I keep a lot of the smaller fish, I knew they would
Hmm.
go perfect in these tanks. So I ended up getting some least killifish. I got a pair of black chin live bears, and then some mollies, some sail mollies. I know most people, it's, but I for some reason I don't. I guess I know what it is. And where I'm at, where I've always been, the only fish that I've ever had access to are stuff that either PetSmart or Petco has to offer. So
Yeah,
even though they have
I got
all
the
this stuff,
gobies up.
oh,
You
let me
got
get
to
them
add
up.
it. Yeah, you're driving, so
Yeah,
you got to put it up.
yeah. These
But
are the ones that I ended up getting. That's obviously uh, in breeding dress, and with a little bit of enhancement to the picture, but in general, that's the way they're going to look. Oh, got to get rid of the ad.
I'm on it. There you go, folks.
That's the male. The male is going to color up that color. The one, even now that he's still trying to get adjusted to my tanks, he looks pretty colored up. Not nothing like that. I don't know how much of that is photo editing, but I did see that when they mentioned him when I saw him on the
It,
on the
it
auction
don't
block.
look too edited. It looks pretty solid, man. Like, see, can we zoom in on it?
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's solid, bro. You see what I'm saying?
So I'm hoping at one point I actually got a breeding pair. Well, I don't know if it's a breeding pair, but The gentleman
Yeah.
that had them on the auction, he said they were a pair. They don't get very big. If I was on the information I was reading, they're about 2.5 inches, maybe three. Um, that the size they'll get. Uh, I was encouraged. I was, one of the reasons why I got them was because I think they're going to do fine for me out here because my fish room tends to run a little bit hot because of
Right.
where I'm
Right.
and these guys can either go brackish, they can go freshwater, and as a matter of fact, uh, the gentleman that I bought these from was telling me that he's even had them go full salt because he was actually keeping them with his mollies, and he
Mm-hmm.
was just getting water from the beach and putting it in his tank. So these right now are coming from brackish water. They're going through that adjustment because all I run is really fresh water.
Right.
And so far, I think they're doing good. They don't seem to be struggling at all. But yeah,
So
that's a perfect example of an
let me
impulsive.
ask you something.
Yeah.
So since you were running those, um, obviously you got them all. You got them pretty much over the fresh now. Did he tell you anything about like your GHKH, TDS, anything like that? Because they're running brack, they're gonna probably tolerate a little higher alkalinity. I'm assuming
Yeah.
from most gobies do.
Well, here's the thing. These guys, I guess from what I was reading out there, they run in these creeks that vary so much because of evaporation and their water parameters are everywhere. They have
Are
such
they
a wide
tidal
range.
creeks?
Huh?
Are they tidal? Like tidal creeks, like influenced by the tide? You know what I'm
Um,
saying? That's how they get
no,
Eurohaline.
they're more like inlets.
They're
Well,
in.
not
They're
inlets.
in. Okay. I'm gonna
Yeah,
pull up now while you're talking about that.
yeah, and what from what he was explaining, these guys can tolerate a wide range uh, of parameters, and no, because he knew I was. What happened was I went to the San Diego Tropical um, Fish Society meeting because they invited me to be a guest speaker. And
Mm-hmm.
after my presentation, I stuck around for the auction, and I was actually had my eyes on some shellies that I wanted, but I got outbid. I made the mistake. I made the mistake of only having like $23 cash on hand instead of what I usually do, pull out money, and I hit my top limit, and I couldn't go anymore, so I got outbid by $1.
The dollar,
That was,
bruh.
yeah. I just all I had was $23 cash on me, and so
I
that's
could have cash apped you, bruh. I could have cash apped you the dollar, man. Shit for the
no.
fish.
I mean, I could have gone to the bank and withdrawn money, but I needed to be able to pay right then and there.
I
And
already know.
that's all I was rolling. So I said, all right. That was kind of exciting though because that means next time I go up there, I'm gonna be ready for them shellies. But for the time being, anyways, these came up and I was gonna buy them, but the club president offered to pay for them after I had won the bid. So
Yeah.
you know, he did it as a gesture for me driving up there and doing that speaking engagement for them. I just I was excited just to be there. So,
Yeah.
uh, but that was my experience as far as yeah, I know I'll bid by $1.
A
That's
dollar, bruh.
the problem. The problem nowadays is I function everything on plastic or on the app. Uh, the fish club needs to get up to speed. They need to be able to have you pay electronically, so they don't lose all these bids on stuff like that. Because it really, if you don't remember to stop by the cash machine on the way to the club meeting, you end up in situations like this. But anyway, it's all a learning experience, and it was fun.
Yeah.
That's really what it would boils down to. So let's
All right.
go. Let's see what else.
Next slide.
Let's see what else people have mentioned as far as purchasing their fish, whether they're impulsive or not. Yeah, so far what I'm seeing that Corey's asking that finding gobies being able to eat Right now, I've been feeding some fry pellets that I have, and they've taken to them. They like them. I buy all my fish food at Kent's Fish, and it's his premium uh, krill. I buy the krill and the spirulina, and I mix them together. They're the point 0.5 millimeter pellets, and I feed that to all my tanks because I mostly keep microfish. I mean microfish, naноfish, and I find that pellet size works real good for them. The only ones that don't get that are obviously my acaras because they're a little bit bigger. I give them I think it's a 2 millimeter pellet, but it's the same stuff. I kind of mix both of those together, and I'm finding everything in here is eating that. Even these least the least killifish, that and the hair algae that's in that tank, they're feeding off of that. So let's see what else we got. Any questions? You have any fish food shows? You got anything, Steven?
No. I was waiting on you. That was it for me.
All
I was
right,
trying to figure out this slide. I was trying to just make sure I'm ready
let
for
me
the
go ahead and
next
bring it
one.
up. We want to move on to the next one.
Yeah.
Well,
All
obviously,
right.
this
Basic equipment needed. So, you want to dive into that one, or you want me to run that one real quick?
well, no, it's just going back to when we first get started. Um, One of the things it's I know when I first got started in the hobby, I thought all you needed was a container that would hold water and some fish, and you could call it good.
Right.
Uh, Needless to say, when that impulsive purchase, I really had to go through a ramped up learning curve. Um, Even though the store did help me out with some of the basic stuff. Um, for example, my very first filtration system was an under gravel filter. It's what I started out with. Um, I think that that store that I would go to, they had some box filters, um, but I don't know. I'm still trying to remember why. I think under gravel filters was what was in my budget at the time, and I went with that. Obviously, that was not the smartest choice with the convicts that I was keeping
Mm-hmm.
because they kept you know doing their nest, and they would move all the gravel, and I would always have I would cuss. It was a fight every day. They would arrange their nesting area, and I would go back and pour the gravel back in because I didn't want the filter to be exposed. So it
Right.
was a back and forth with them for quite a while. Later on, my solution was just adding more gravel, and it kind of nipped that in the butt, where I wasn't having that issue anymore. But that was the very basic. I didn't have a filter in. I mean, a heater in my tank,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't even think I had a net, to be honest. I think I would just drain the tank down enough where I could reach in there, grab them with my hand, and put them in a little holding container. While I took all the water out, put new water, undechlorinated water at that, and then put the fish back in there. Uh, but that was when I first started, and eventually, uh, what ended up happening, I started looking for more information, and I learned that there is some very basic equipments that you need to have. Um, I always noticed that the fish stores always had little air bubblers running in there, and I started asking questions, obviously, what that was for. And, I learning that not only was it running air, but it also had a filter system in it, which was a sponge filter. And then the bubbles were agitating the water, which would allow you to get some oxygen within to be able to get some aeration for oxygenation. So that was something also that I had to learn. And so, I don't know how much more you want to dive into this, but I think for most of us, it's pretty general that you need
Um.
to have some very basic equipment if you want your fish to survive.
Well, yeah, I'll do that. So I look at it as it's a life support system because I'm going to look at it as if I never had a fish tank before. So when we say basic equipment needed, that's literally what it is. It is the minimal amount of equipment that one would need to be successful in keeping fish. Can you push over to the next slide so I can show an example? Thank you. So with that being said, the most basic of basic equipment is the actual vessel itself, the tank, right? So think about it like this. Up here on the example, we have pictures of a tote bin, which I do have those on deck right now. I always use those. We have a little garden pond, and Corey Dorable, y'all will check her out. She just made a nice one with the little inverted little tank in there. It's pretty dope. Then they got a bucket, and then they got the classic fish killer. They got the good old fashioned OG goldfish bowl with a dead goldfish in it. And then if you look over there, that's something that I would all the way do. I probably should have stock in Rubbermaid because I was so put some Christmas lights on the tote bin and put a little fountain in it and put some fish in it, and wouldn't nobody be able to tell me nothing. And so those are your basics, right? What do each equipment, right? So like each equipment has its own specific job. And if you want to click over to the next one, we can kind of go into that of why it's important. All right. Boom. Because this is how you keep your fish alive. So even though this is like in a question format, how to keep fish alive? No, I'm literally telling you. That's what it is. The basic equipment is how you're going to do it. So over here we got 3 bullets. Cycling your tank, reiterating what you can use as a tank once you have one, and then once again reiterating the basic equipment. So those 3 things in combination are the building blocks of the fish keeping journey. Once you figure that out, the math is there and you scale it. It's always to scale. So let's look at the sponge filter on this slide, right? Everybody's talking about sponge filters. It's all the rage. I'm going to be honest. When I first got into the hobby, it was under gravel filters. Then you had the little box filter, and that had your carbon in there, and it had your polyfill. And it was just a little self-contained little box. You run an airline to it, and it bubbles. Then, if you wanted to get the Cadillac, for poor people and kids, which is what I was, the HOB. And it was a Penguin bio wheel with the rollers on there. And it was just huge, loud, clunky thing. And I mean, it was just state of the art. Like nobody couldn't tell me nothing. And that's what I was running. What I didn't understand was the life cycle. That stuff was just auxiliary equipment. What happened is me, and most people do this, you get lulled into a complacency where you like, oh, well, shit, I can throw money at it. If I paid the money, it should work. It's good. I bought the light. I bought the rocks. I bought the filter. I bought the drops. I did all this stuff. I paid the money. Why are my fish dying? And you get pissed off people going back up there to the fish store with a bag of dead fish saying, hey, you sold me some bogus fish. And that's when the education, you can watch the hobby grow. Like retail, they don't care about the hobby. They want the money. So they say, we're not going to give you a refund until you bring in a water sample. Or they would say something like, you got a 7-day arrive alive guarantee. You start learning about quarantine, hospital tanks, etc. But still, nobody was talking about the most important thing of keeping fish alive, which is the nitrification cycle. So that's where we get into the sponges, right? Right on. So we go into this nitrogen cycle, right? And it's just like this big thing. Everybody's like, "Holy, what is this?" Right? The nitrogen cycle is the building blocks of life. This is not only applicable to fish tanks and keeping fish alive, it's applicable to everything. Um, Plants, soil. Like you could talk about like a cornfield, if you would, and how the nitrogen gets broken down and how the plants are able to uptake that nitrogen and convert it into sugar via photosynthesis from the sun. So it's just a cycle of life. All right. So let's dive into it, right? You go up there with your bag of dead fish in your water that looks like, I don't
Milk.
know, like
Water and
milk,
milk.
like watery milk, right? Like somebody rinsed out a bowl that had ice cream in it. Same, exactly. That's what it looks like. Or your cereal bowl when you rinse it out in the sink before you put it in the dishwasher. So it's the blocks, and it all starts with ammonia, good old NH4, fish waste, also known as pee and poo. The best way to articulately say it. So when I explain this stuff to younger people, like when I'm talking to kids and stuff, like if I'm volunteering somewhere, I like to make them laugh, so I'll say pee and poo, and they go, ew, it's funny. So, but that gets them engaged. So you got your ammonia, and then if you look at the cycle, you can see it. It's converted into nitrites, nitrates, water change, right? That word water change is in the word, right? Like every time you change the water, that's literally what you do. You are changing the chemistry of that water. Did you had something you was gonna throw in there? Because we were
No,
talking about this the other day.
yeah, just on the water changes. Well, and this is obviously going back from where I started to where I'm at now. To
Mm-hmm.
me now, water changes uh, are not as often as I had to do them when I first started, because generally my tanks now are so heavily planted that the only reason I'm running filtration on them is just for water clarity, as far as the debris from from especially in my goldfish tank,
Right.
from the waste that they're putting out. But the system is set up to the point now where I have all that beneficial bacteria that's in there that I could literally run. If I were to lose power, let me put it like that: if I lose power, I'm not worried.
Me neither.
The only thing I'm worried about is would be temperature, and
Okay.
temperature in that it would get too hot in here, because my garage can get up in the hundreds.
Right.
And if it's only a matter of hours, I'm not too concerned, because the water would start raising temperature gradually, and the fish would adjust to it to a certain point. Um,
Okay.
but other than that, I could literally right now turn off all my filters, and I wouldn't be worried about it, just because I know the cycle is already well established within my fishing
Right.
system.
And see, this is a good point that you bring up. When we're talking about the elements themselves, because all this is breakdowns of ammonia, which is further broken down into carbon, essentially. I'm not a chemist, but essentially. So, depending on your setup and what you're keeping, for example, like I'm running this little nano reef, and I got soft coral and I got LPS coral in here. For the longest time, everybody in the reef community was 000 on your ppms across the board, 000. And I'm kicking myself in the butt back in the day when I first broke into it, reefing, trying to make it, hit zero across the big three, ammonia, nitrate, and phosphate in salt water, right? So I like to, me, I like to visually. So the consensus now is that you need a little bit of phosphate, you need a little bit of your nitrate and nitrite in trace amounts for the betterment of the coral, because coral is a symbiotic animal that does do photosynthesis, but it also leaches your calcium out of the water so it can make its coralline skeleton, right? So, like, that got me to thinking when you were talking about the lights could go off right now. Ahora mismo, fue la luz. Y todo es tranquilo. You don't have to worry about nothing. And that's what got me into my style of husbandry, if you will. Now, a lot of people are going to be mad at me, but in all transparency, I am not. And I'm not a huge proponent of water changes. And I know, like, a lot of people are going to be like, what the hell? You know, why don't you do water changes? I don't. I belong to, I have a very affectionate name for this tribe I belong to. It's called LIFTA, and it's an acronym. It stands for Leave It the F Alone. And that's the tribe I belong to. I like to leave stuff alone. And I look at the fish, the tank, the plants, everything like that, and that's how I know, should I do a water change or not. And I came to that from doing too many water changes. And it took me to sit down and say, hey, let's say you got a standard size fish tank that everybody get when they say they're going to get their first big one, right? So a 55, like that'll be about your first big one. When I was a teenager, you couldn't tell me nothing when I got my first little 55. You know what I'm saying? So 10% of that for easy math would be what? 5 gallons, let's just say. Honestly, it'd be closer to like 6, but let's just say a 5-gallon bucket is 10%, right? So like a 50% water change, you pretty much might as well go ahead and say you recycled that tank. I've had so many clients in the past, and I've had so many friends, like they're like pulling their hair out because they don't know what the hell is going on with their tank. They can't get past the ammonia bloom, they can't get rid of infusoria, or they just cannot get it to stabilize. And the first thing I'll ask them is, well, what are you doing? Are you doing water changes? And I asked that question kind of loaded, right? I do. I'm an ass. I'm not going to lie. I asked the question kind of loaded, like, hey, man, you doing your water changes? And they'd be like, yeah, man, I'm doing like such and such, such and such, 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 this many times a week. And I'm like, oh, whoa, 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 whoa. Tranquilo, por eso. That's why. Think about it now. Every time you do a water change, that's what you're doing. You are literally changing the water. And even more so, like me, because I'm trying to like be ballsy and run filterless systems, because that's just where I'm at. I love running self-contained ecosystems. Like that's where I'm at. I mean, anybody, you can plug up a filter, bruh. You better keep them fish alive if you got $1,000 worth of auxiliary equipment on it, or you need to go get a different hobby. I'm just saying, you know. But like that's my thing on filterless systems. Believe it or not. You want to kill something? You want to throw something off? Start doing a bunch of water changes. Like these bowls, right? Like this one right here that I call the Igapo slice. This one. I did one water change on that thing since I put it up whenever I posted that video earlier this spring. I did one. And the reason is because that's the fastest way to crash it. It's like biology, right? I'm going to nerd out real quick. So like in biology, like let's say we got a graph, right? And you got your x-axis and your y-axis, whatever. And then you have two kinds of growth when we're talking about organisms, right? You have what's exponential growth when it's just boom, it just goes straight up. It's up and down. And then you have what's called linear growth, which is like this, like side by side, like this, right? When you hit linear growth, that's when you hit your critical limit. So basically, what that means is that ecosystem has hit its limit of the amount of organisms that it can successfully sustain. And that's been my whole thing. Like I'm about this is you can go take an 8th grade biology class. You can Google it right now. Google critical limit and exponential growth when it comes to ecosystems, and that will answer all your questions. And I pretty much just gave you the keys to the city and demystified these fish bowls. Like that's how I became the bowl goat. It's 100% biology. And once you can learn each container, whatever container you're using, like you do the math with the surface area, X, Y, and Z. I want to show y'all this tank. I got a little nano tank like this big, and there's nothing on, there's no filter. And I want to run this one. And I'm running it it's a full mini scape. And there's nothing on it. Nothing. It's just water, rocks, aqua soil, and plants. I saw my name. Steve, do you put a bubbler? No. There's nothing. Corey, adorable. To answer your question, there's nothing. It's a self-contained system. The only thing I add is light because that's the gas. Light is the fuel for the system. Once the plant's got to be able to photosynthesize, and that's how that's the only added thing. Otherwise, I try to do it in the window, but I haven't figured out how to do it to where like I can make art, right? Like black it out, but still let it get the window, but mitigate the algae. You know what I'm saying? So once I'm able, I'm gonna play with it. I got two growing in ambient, like natural window light right now. One of them is through the roof. It's got really simple plants, salvinia. I got some anacris in there, a little bit of najas, some guppy grass, and there's something else in there. Some string hair algae, obviously. And then there's a relic population of blue dreams and some blue rillies mudded up in there with some ram's horn. So it's self-contained. I hardly ever feed it. That's the other thing too. Feeding it breaks it. But yeah, just food for thought on the whole nitrogen cycle thing because we are in this one, bro. I just went on a whole nerd out deep dive. It felt good. It felt good, bro. I'm satisfied.
Yeah, we got a question here from Master Aquatics. Just call me Eduardo. He's asking, let's say the nitrogen, the nitrates are good, but it looks like it needs a visual cleaning, vacuuming, substrate, etc. Is visually unpleasant, unappealing. What do you do? You can answer first, and then I'll tell you what I do.
Okay. I would do just what you said, Eduardo. If it's dirty, it's dirty, right? So if your parameters are good, your parameters are good. I'm not saying that I don't clean my tanks. What I'm saying is I'm not finna sit up here and tell y'all. A lot of y'all talking about I do all these rigorous water changes and tank maintenance because I don't. I do the bare minimum possible because I like my bio and I want to keep it intact. But like vacuum and substrate, yeah, I would vacuum substrate in little pockets and stuff if it looks unsightly, depending on the tank I'm running. That's not a problem. And I would just keep it, you know what I'm saying, keep it to a minimum, the amount of water. New water ain't never hurt nothing. It's the cleaning the filter, stirring up the really messing with the life support system. That's why I top off. I do. Like, and I live in Houston. We got liquid rock, and I'm running rainwater and tap. I don't spend money on RO. I don't spend money on any of that stuff. And if you do, that's fine. But I just don't. I'm not in the play. I have way too many systems running to be doing that, you know. So I haven't lost anything. Like y'all see me, I'm here, bro. Like Steve from World Planet Tanks. Like I'm tanking, baby. And it's worked for me. But I hope that answers your question, Eduardo.
As far as
Plus,
what I do, um, I guess the question really boils down to what kind of tank you're really keeping.
right,
And the reason I say that is because obviously if your idea of keeping a tank or you're trying to keep a show tank, that's going to play into a factor because that's not going to look nice in a show tank. Uh,
right.
but for my purposes of keeping fish, I'm not doing show tanks. Although I do like aesthetically pleasing tanks, I kind of welcome that because, and I don't know how true this is or not, but for me, that's what helps, go into my substrate and be able to provide those nutrients that my plants needs to grow out. So I personally will leave it alone, let it settle into the gravel or the sand that I'm keeping, because I know the plants will eventually break that down. And the reason I say that is because all my tanks, for the most part, I use inert substrates. I use sand and gravel that I literally get from out here in the desert. That, and I use pull filter sand. So I'm not using any of the enriched soils. Lately, the only caveat to that would be the last three tanks that I've set up. I've set them up with plenums, and that's a whole other type of filtration system. But in that, what it has, I do add clay, and I do add laterite, which is iron.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but again, on those, only if it becomes very unsightly. When I do happen to do a water change, what I'll do is I'll just kind of move the water at the top of the surface of that soil, let it kick up, and then what gets vacuum, what gets siphoned out gets siphoned out. But for the most part, mine will have sediments in the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a problem with it. Like I said, I find that it works its way eventually in between the gravel and the sand, and the roots will take it up.
Yeah.
So that's what I do. As long as the nitrates are good, I'm not too worried about it. Um, the only other possibility that you might get from that, or why you might want to address that, is because if there's too many nutrients and your plant's not consuming it, it will have algae. Algae's going to
That
happen.
that goes back to what I was talking about, the critical limit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So back to the graph, you got your x-axis and your y-axis. So we're talking about this would be a situation when we are actually directly talking about exponential growth. And you're going to see that exponential growth in the form of the algae bloom. So the algae, in turn, would be your expressive organism in this instance, right? So once those nutrients have been expired, exhausted effectively, then you hit what's called your critical limit, and that's where your linear growth begins. So the balance is finding the critical limit to keep exponential growth out of the equation. You see what I'm saying? So, like, for example, a good one you said is you build your substrate up with the plenum, you put the laterite clay, you do everything you're supposed to do to set it up. Yes.
Yeah.
So your that tank is its own ecosystem. There is only so much you can add or take away to that tank, but it's only going to hold what it can hold. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And once it hits the critical limit, that's it. It can sustain less life, no problem, but it can't sustain more unless you add another variable, i.e., a bigger filtration system, or like how we go spike a tank, something like that, you know. So one of that those situations is identifying key terms, and that's it's like a recipe, right? Like if you were cooking, making barbecue or a cake or something, you got to know what your ingredients are, right? And when I started being able to wrap terms around it, it made it easier for me, right? Meaning there's only so much life. So if I got this water bottle right here and I put life in it, it's only so much life this thing can hold, if it's gonna hold life at all. You see what like, and that's how I run the majority of my systems. But yeah, we went in on the nitrogen cycle there, bro. You want to move on to the next one, bro?
Well,
Hey, y'all, let us know if y'all liking this combo. I'm digging it.
yeah, I think that was pretty much our we're gonna our last slide. I think um, on there that we had for today.
Okay.
The other one would just, and this is something that's come up, especially. I don't know how many of you that are here with us today are necessarily beginner fish keepers.
Mm-hmm.
But in case there's any of you out there that are haven't been in the hobby for too long, one of the things that I brought up the last time that me and Steve were talking was one of the issues because I do spend a lot of time on some of the Facebook groups and stuff like that, looking at questions and unfortunately seeing how some people get torn apart. But that's besides the point. One of the common things that I see is when new fish keepers are asking for help,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes, and it's no fault of their own because they don't know any better. They haven't. They're still learning. Uh, is how they pose their questions. Sometimes
Right.
it'll be a poor image picture of a fish, which all you can really make out is that his fins are all clamped up, and it doesn't look. Uh, it looks like it's not eating, and but there's a lot of things. There's several things that you need to be able to formulate or ask when you're asking for help, and that's kind of what we wanted to address before we get off of here. It's just some very basic information that is recommended when asking for help. Some of the things that are important to provide the person, or the group of people that you want some feedback from. The information they're going to need, the very general information they're going to need to try to give you a better, I guess, diagnosis or an idea as to what the problem could be. And the first thing that they're going to ask for is that we need to know when we're trying to help somebody, what are your parameters? And by that I mean, what are your levels of ammonia, nitrites in your tank? You need to have that information because that if those are good, then it can eliminate a lot of possibilities, and then you can narrow down to where the problem might be. But if those are way off and they're not within range, that's where we probably need to start addressing some of those issues. And probably start with just the water chemistry in your tank that could be creating a lot of those problems. That's why it's important. How are you going to know your water parameters? Well, one way to do it is you can take a sample of that water, take it down to your local fish store. A lot of them will provide free testing service. I know our PetSmart here, they'll test the water for you. But if you don't want to do that, or maybe when you're first starting, you might want to do that because you're not sure how to test water. That's okay. Do that. They'll give you that information you need. But as you start getting more involved into the hobby, it's highly recommended, especially when you're first starting, that you have some way of testing your water, whether it's through test strips or those master kits where you do individual vials for individual parameters, or even if it's I think there's some electronic ones out there that you can test some of these levels. It doesn't matter what you use. Use something because that's going to give you a point of reference as to what could be going wrong. I used to test my water religiously when I first started, and I used to be so paranoid that if
Mm-hmm.
nitrates went up, a little bit, I'd be like, oh, I need to do a water change.
There you
As
go. There you
you
go.
get in the hobby and you get experience, you start not worrying so much about some of these levels that you realize, yes, there could be high, but they're still within range. So very important. You needed to have some way to figure out parameters. You need to know that. Next thing that they're going to want to know is what temperature. And the temperature really is because sometimes, in most cases, uh, it tends to be a lot cooler than what the fish like to be in. So that's why temperature is important. In my case, my biggest problem is making sure the temperature doesn't get too hot because
Right.
then you start running into issues of depletion of oxygen within the water column. Um, so that and just the levels of where fish can actually survive and live in. If it gets way too hot, and one somebody mentioned at the presentation last week that there isn't very many fish that can live over 102 degrees water temperature, if any at all. So that's something that in my situation is important because if it starts getting too hot, then I'm going to start seeing symptoms of where the fish are going to be struggling. They look like they're gasping for air because they don't have oxygen within the water column. So that's why temperature is very important. Too low of a temperature is going to create problems. Too high of a temperature is going to create a different set of problems. The other thing that's important is noticing the behavior. What do we mean by that? Well, most fish, depending on the species, tend to be pretty active. They'll be swimming around. Uh, a change in that normal behavior that you normally see, a fish that all it's doing is laying in the bottom, and it's not a bicher or something like that that likes to kind of hang out. It's most like ambush fish will stay still, but if you have like what I'm keeping, whether it's your betas, your guppies, your whatever, they're going to be pretty active around the tank, and you're going to notice that all of a sudden, when a fish is not feeling good, it's not going to move around as much. It'll kind of uh, like for example with guppies, they'll kind of swim in place and they're just kind of wiggling back and forth real fast. That's a behavior you want to observe because something's going on there. So behavior is important. What is it doing when you feed your fish? Uh,
Hmm.
when they get used to you, they start recognizing when you start putting your hand towards the top of the tank. After a while of keeping them, you'll notice that the fish start swimming into that area because they recognize that you might feed them. If your fish quit doing that, all of a sudden you notice your fish are not doing that. That's also a behavior change. That's stuff that's important to
Hmm.
notice. And that leads right into visual clues. You want to be able to see if there's a change. Does your fish look like the belly's starting to sink in? Are the fins all clumped together? They're not spread out like they normally are. It's not moving as fast as it was before. You start noticing different things on your fish, the spots. It looks like it has salt that was sprinkled on it, or it looks like it has a white fuzzy film on it, or you just start noticing lesions or sores. Those things are all visual clues that could potentially lead to a problem. And you want to be able to relay that information to whoever it is you're seeking help from. How long has it been happening? The time. Did this start happening today? Did it start happening a week ago? That's all very critical too, because that's going to be able to determine how much time you have to be able to address that issue. So those are some of the very basic uh, as to what the very general basic information you need to provide for the people that are trying to help you. You can go ahead and jump in there, Steve. I gotta plug in my computer. Hold on.
Yeah, you good, man. So we're talking about temp, and this is a contentious topic. Is temp because I am in that train of thought too that us Westerners we run our fish entirely too hot. Um, I think people forget that fish swim, and there's no such thing as the optimal temperature because there's so many different gradients of water. The fish gonna swim to wherever they want in whatever body of water they live in if they are able to do so. I don't care if it's a 5 by 5 mud puddle, they're going to find the most comfortable spot in that 5x5 mud puddle to exist. So, um, looking at that, it's one of those things where, let me get the slides up. It's one of those things where you're thinking about it, parameters, visual clues. Here's my thing with visual clues. Go outside as much as you can. I think for me, with the whole hobby, when it comes to all this stuff with the parameters, temp, behavior, whatever, I kind of have a natural understanding of nature anyway. I'm always outside observing, looking, and if it don't look natural, it's probably not. And I think that's probably the biggest thing is I think beginners forget that this stuff is wild. These are wild animals, with the exception of, your man-made, curated, ornamental varieties. The majority of this stuff it came from somewhere in the jungle, out of a river, out of a stream somewhere. And I think that that's the most important thing to remember is don't get paranoid. You can actually do more harm trying to stay on top of stuff than you do good. Um, Beta fish, for example. Everybody love betas. We'll talk about splendens, right? Beta splendens. So that fish is one of those notorious fish that if you pamper it, you kill it.
Yeah.
Point blank, period. Any beta breeder that is worth his or her salt will tell you you do not, under any circumstances, pamper beta fish. I don't pamper mine, and I got some beautiful ones. They don't even have a tank. They live in jugs. I jar mine. Females, males, I jar them. And they're all beautiful. If we had time, I'd run and go grab one, but we don't. We don't have time for that, right? Do we have time for that? I don't think we have time
Oh,
for
we got
that.
about 15 minutes.
No, we can push. I mean, do you think I should?
Or, we can leave that for
Okay.
where we can take a deeper dive into it if you want.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but no, I think going back to that, like I said, those are, that might not be applicable to most of you here.
Right.
Because most of you here have already kept fish for quite a while and can either self-diagnose or know the basic information you need to provide when you're looking for help.
Right.
But I know people might come back to this on a replay and if they, looking for information. That's why I felt it was important that we put that out there.
Yep.
So that they can, if they get to that section, they can have an understanding of what it is that they need, what information they need to have at hand to be able to ask those questions. And the
Right.
reason I wanted to do that is because in most of these Facebook groups that I see these questions posted, everybody is real quick to judge or dictate what needs to be, but nobody's explaining to the person that they need a little bit of more information, or they'll just say, "Well, I can't help you. I need more information," but they don't tell them what information it is you're seeking. So, and that really frustrates me and makes me a little bit upset.
Right.
Because these are people that are coming into the hobby and they're trying to make it work, and the last thing we want is to discourage them. They're already feeling a little bit discouraged because things are going wrong.
Right. They don't want their fish to die.
Yeah, and people's attitudes of acting that way and like not having time to kind of walk them through what you need
Right.
is a part that irritates me. So that's why I wanted to make sure that was out there. I know most of it's probably not applicable to this group, but I know, if somebody, or if if somebody goes, you can always refer them. Hey, go check out this stream. They talk about that, and
Right. Like
wanted that.
we not gonna crucify nobody for the most common one is you'll have some little girl or somebody get in the chat in the little forum and they got a damn goldfish in a 20-gallon. And then you get these bleeding heart virtue signaling fish police just go and they commence to just viciously, you know, eviscerate the hell out of the poor girl, saying that she's an animal abuser and she should be quartered and executed at dawn and just all this crazy stuff because she got some feeder goldfish in a 20-gallon fish tank. And it's just ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous. And it goes back to you always gonna have them ones that want to be the hero, you know? They want to put their cape on. They want to be the glass box hero. They know everything about fish tanks. And they go and they tear these people apart because they can't even put their bias to the side long enough to realize that that little window of experience that you have in the hobby is just that. It's your window of experience. And we ain't going to get nowhere fast with people trying to talk tall and I'm snuffleupagus and blah 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 blah. But you can't relate the information. Hey, at the end of the day, to be an effective teacher, you have to be an effective communicator. It don't do me no good to come up here for an hour and try to sound smart if the people that's listening can't pick up what I'm putting down, grasp it, retain it, and more importantly, the whole point of this whole thing, use it at a later time in their repertoire of tools. Then be able to pay it forward to sharing that knowledge to the next people who need it. So yeah, you hit that's a pretty contentious topic right there. You
Yeah,
know,
and here's the one thing why I get so upset with people
right?
that are out there, and I'm gonna call it for what it is bullying, because they forget how quickly do they forget that when they started or when I started, I had the same questions.
Hey,
Now I've been doing this for a little bit longer that it seems basic
you think
now.
you know something now? Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
But at the time, it wasn't very basic. It's very complicated to grasp all these ideas because there's such new terms and things that you're learning and you're trying to put together and you're trying to understand. And
Right.
nitrites get confused all the time. I still do it to this day. I'm trying to wait a minute. Which is the good one? Which is the bad one? Because they sound so similar. And I'm not gonna lie. I sometimes go to Google and go, okay, nitrates are this. Okay, nitrates are okay. Now I'm straight.
Right.
But
Then you get tired of that. You remember the numbers.
yeah,
You know, it's an N, an H, a 2, a 3, and a 4 some damn where. One of them is good, one of them is not good, one of them ain't good at all. But no, this is all stuff that it do need to be addressed. I was looking at the comments. I saw a comment on here, and it resonated with me because it matched something that you were saying. That you can educate without intimidating people. So,
yeah,
like
that
at
was
the end of
correct.
how do you? So that's what it is, right? Educating people
Oh,
is one thing.
it just goes back to human decency.
That's
Uh,
it. That's what I was gonna
you
say.
know, it's just Eduardo, like you said, it's egos. Egos are the problem, and when prevent learning. I remember the best teachers I've ever had were the ones that were very approachable. They weren't the ones that were afraid to learn from the students.
Right.
They had at least they had that attitude. They had that openness about them.
Mm-hmm.
That you never felt like you were inadequate if you asked a question. To me, those are the most memorable teachers that I've ever had.
Right.
And one that comes to mind always, and I wouldn't say he was necessarily my favorite teacher, but just the fact the way he spoke to me, I learned so much. And that was Mr. Ordunez. He was our math algebra teacher in high school.
Yeah.
And, it's just the way his nature, the way he carried himself. Even though we were trying to learn, something that could be a little bit complicated for most, he had the ability that if you don't understand it the way he was teaching it, because I came across that with some teachers. They had that one way of teaching it, and that was it. You could
Right.
there was no other way to learn it but the way that they were teaching it.
And if you didn't learn it the way they teached it, you're stupid. It's not, I'm a bad teacher and I need to
And
learn how to
Mr.
get the
Rodriguez, I
medium
remember
kids.
with okay, you're not picking it up this way. Okay, let's try it this other way.
Exactly.
Okay, that didn't work for you. Okay, let's try it this way. And he didn't
That's a
carry
good
himself
teacher.
the whole class because he knew that there was more than just me that didn't understand it, but they didn't want to ask. They were afraid to ask.
Right.
So I really learned so much from him. Not only the subject that he was teaching, but how to be with other people, how to try to listen, and how to try to explain, and to be open, and that was always the biggest takeaway for me. So much that I'm almost 50 now, and I still remember that happened back when I was maybe 16, 15 in high school. That's how much of an impact he had on me.
Dang, bro, you old, bro. 50?
Oh yeah, I'm old. I'm old. I'm not gonna lie about it, but I don't feel
No,
old.
bro.
I can tell you that.
No, you're preaching truth, bro. And it's amazing who gonna impact who. But look, the same way, Mr. Ortuna, that's his name, yeah?
Yeah, Mr. Ordunez.
Mr. Ortunas, he impacted you, right?
Yeah.
In a good, positive way that you carrying it with you for the rest of your life. God only knows, literally, God only knows how many people you have been able to impact in a positive way using his shoulders as a springboard. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
On the flip side of that, look how many times something that you say to somebody, how it could discourage them, how it could, they just be like, you know what, to hell with it. You know what, you're right, it was a dumb idea. And then they don't do it ever again. You know, and I think that's the big thing with the whole ego. Like, I'm an observer. I like patterns. I'm trying to tell you. I observe patterns. What I have noticed about animal people is that animal people usually pretty good when it comes to animals. But they not good at nothing else. And they damn sure not good at people. They usually loquacious, closed-minded, very obstinate. They got fragile egos, and they can't fight. So they hide in intellect because that's all they really got going for them. So when they come across somebody, you know, they passionate about it, but they don't have no people skills. And then you'll get people making passes for them, give them a pass. Oh, they don't know no better. Oh, they don't have no people skills. Oh, they were sheltered as a child. Oh, no, 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 no. Accountability. If you smart enough to learn the Latin names of like 16 taxonomic clades of fish, you can learn how to be a kind, balanced, responsible adult and human being. Keyword adult. You can learn that. You can absolutely learn that. And if you can learn to keep your TDS between, 175 and 200 to keep a certain kind of fish or shrimp alive, you can learn how to have a conversation that is two parts: a speaker, a listener, that you speak when spoken to, kindness, all those things. You know what I'm saying? And I think that is the biggest turnoff when it comes to animal hobbies. And I can speak for the fish and the reptile community because I used to hurt like big time. I don't have anything now. I just have my turtles. But the reptile community, they're a little more accepting because we on the fringe of society already because don't nobody like snakes. So we just like the snakes. We beautiful animals. We just misunderstood and mistreated. And we don't like being played with roughly. We will bite you. Like that's how it works. Don't touch me. You know? And then on the fish side, it's a little more arrogance, man. It's a lot of pretentious nonsense going on in the hobby. And it goes back to this live stream while we doing this. We probably sure we're gonna have to wrap it up in 5 minutes, yeah.
Yeah.
And but the people need to know that I feel that way. You feel that way. I'm more than sure everybody in the chat right now feel this way. So why do we have zippers on our? No, we need to say something. We need to address it, take accountability for it, and keep the hobby good. Because at the end of the day, this is a very expensive, compulsive activity. Like I was just thinking about that the other day. Like, man, fish tanks is a lot. Fish tanks is a lot, bro.
Oh yeah.
And like by the time you get through with it, I ain't got time to be over here intellectually sparring with some cat about some anecdotal BS that really don't have nothing to do with nothing. You know, like fish tanks is a lot. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of time, and the goal is whoever who has never made an error that caused oh yeah, duh. That's rhetorical at this stage in the game. You gonna kill fish,
Yeah.
hands down. You gonna kill fish, like you never not. I would, and you know what? I'm gonna put it to you like this: I've had more freak accidents now because I'm a big headed, cocky son bitch than before. Because I'm Steve from War Plantains. I know what the hell I'm doing. Put the thing and they be all right. Next thing you know, I'm over there. Oh shit! I'm freaking out. I gotta fix it. Now I gotta be Steve from Warrior Plantains, so I don't kill this damn fish that I was so brazenly complacent about. You throw his head, yeah, go and put him in there. Go and put him in there. He'll be all right, because I'm that dude. I'm the goat, you know. So yeah, you always learning. Like don't ever know, but I think that go to a testament of the individual to show where they heart at. Because like me, I'm not trying to go to hell behind a fish tank. I love y'all. I'm not finna lie to y'all behind no. That's stupid. Yeah, I put too much water in there and I fucked it up. There you go. Yeah, I'm a Generation Xer, man. We don't get trophies for participating. You screwed it up. You learn your lesson. You do it again. That's what happens. You can't cognitive dissonance your way out of it, talking about feelings and all that other woke stuff these days that people try to do. See who can talk in the biggest, broadest circle, sound articulate and eloquent as possible. Come on, now you killed that fish, boy. You killed it. That's what it is. That's what it is. You killed it. You're a dumbass. Don't do it again. I ain't gonna say no names because the arowana had popped in my head, and I'm gonna just leave it at that. And leave it at that because I just don't want to start no shit. But talk about killing arowanas and shit, and then try to talk a big circle. And now you killed that fish, boy. You killed.
Well, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it's getting time where I got to run because I got to go to work.
Right.
This is hopefully what we get more of. This is really what we want from our stream, is to be able to have that interaction, have that discussion. I think it's time now that we start policing ourselves and be more conscious of what we say has repercussions, and that we are held accountable to what we're saying and how we're saying it.
Right.
This hobby is a wonderful hobby. It has done magnificent things for different people. Some of us have shared that. Some of us will be sharing it in the future. But if we want this to continue to exist, we need to have accountability, and that's what it really boils down to. And like I was saying last time, a lot of these regulations that are out there that affect our hobby are because we're not holding ourselves accountable. We're the one. We're the creators of a lot of these regulations that are out there because we're not responsible pet keepers, and that goes in general with all kinds of pets, not just fish keeping.
That's right.
And until we don't start assuming responsibilities, things are only going to get worse. So
that's right.
Thank you guys for being here with us. If you like what we're putting out, please subscribe. And we do this every other week. We're not doing it every Saturday. It's every two Saturdays, and that's just because my work schedule is real crazy, and we do talk a lot. So I don't know if you guys want to hear us all the time either. So that's that's the other reason. But anything you want to add in closing, Steve?
No, man, this was dope. It's only going to get better. Share this out, get the word out of what we doing, and y'all see how we moving. Low key, we putting this out here for the people. It's organic. It's gonna grow. Everybody gonna find their way here and trickle over here, and that's what we want to make it. We keeping it the way it is. Jorge over there with his fish tanks in the back, in his happy place. I'm over here with my fish tanks. I'm in my happy place. I'm good. I got la bandera para allá. Like, I'm good, and we want to keep it that way. So share it out, get the word out, and if y'all got anything from this, then our purpose has been served. Um, it was a pleasure, and I can't wait till we get on the next one. It's gonna be
All right.
even equally as good, better.
All right. Well, with that, I want to thank you very much. Thank you for being out here, and we'll see you guys in a couple of weeks. Thank you, guys.
All right, man. Y'all have a great weekend.